Greetings, programmers! Busted Thumbs back as we blaze through double digits on our episodes for creating a Frogger competition project. We're up to episode number 11 now, and if you recall for number 10, I was making a little bit of an adjustment to the way that we tracked left and right. Not doing it in columns anymore, but doing it just based on the X position. And we left off when our frog was a little bit of a bad state here. If we go ahead and run this guy, you see that when he jumps, he's doing some funny things after his jumps are done. He's just really not keeping up to his position very well. And there's a simple reason for that. If you remember, when we were doing our jumps, the things that we would do on the frog tick was to position the frog on the screen, which we did update, and then we checked for the jump completion, which we didn't update. So if you go down and you look at the jump completion logic here, it was saying that when the jump was all done, that's this if condition right here. If we were jumping and if that jump was all done, then we were updating the row and the column, and that's how we updated our position for our frog. Well, obviously we're not keeping track of columns anymore, so that whole thing can just go away. And we stick that in there. And what we're doing instead is we're kind of keeping track of that position in the last jump X and last jump Y. So we're going to actually have to update that last jump X and last jump Y when we update these other variables about the jump. So the jump start X and the jump start Y. And since we're now keeping track of jump start his actual X position based on his real X position, we can just throw that in there. For jump start Y, it's we want it to snap to the row still, and we were updating that current row there. So we need to do a lot like we did in the last episode in this initial logic here. We need to bring this down. So this guy can come back down. We'll just scroll him into place. And this isn't exactly right. What we actually want here is to use the current column. Instead of using all the columns, we want the current column. So let's get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. Let's get rid of that variable. And his actual position now is going to be his current row. I'm sorry, row is up and down. His current row, which is current row right there. Plus half of that row because he is tracked, his actual position is tracked right in his middle. And if you think about it, we could have done that same change up here. Because we actually set the current row right there, we actually don't need all of this stuff. This is doing more math than it actually needs to do. So what it really needs to just do is keep track of the current row plus a half. And I think this should clean things up a little bit. If we hit play on this guy again, he is still where he should be to begin with, and when he jumps, he's jumping to the right spot. Now you do see he goes off the screen there, a little too much to the left, and let's check the right, and also to the right he goes off too much. And that's again because we did a little math here. When we were checking whether he could jump or not, that he was still on the screen, but we let him go a little too far over. And to fix that, we're going to have to change the way we're doing X's here. We're going to have to correct it, basically. So we have some conditions. When we're done moving the X to where we think it ought to be, what we really should do is make sure he hasn't gone further than we think he should. And further than we think he should would be if the X position is less than well, if it's less than the negative 240 plus the side margin plus half of a column width, then we don't really want him to go any more over. So, and that guy right there, that's the X position. If his X position is greater than that side margin plus the column width in half, which I find the same as dividing by 2. We'll get back to that guy later. Then we're going to want to set the X position to that value right there. And that is done in motion. we just want to go ahead and set x2 and duplicate that and pop him in there. And we want to do something very similar in the other direction. If he, only in this case we want not less than but greater than. Let's go ahead and grab the greater than, pop that in there. And we're going to want minus. So we're going to want 240 minus this stuff here. And again, we're going to want minus. Set that to 240. That stuff there. Let's try that again. This means that as he's jumping, oh, I should make that bigger for you. He's jumping to the side. He never goes further than we want him to, which is that side margin plus the column width, half a column width. And we got the same thing over here. He's trying to jump, but he just can't do it. Okay. So I think we've kind of cleaned up our positioning elements here. And that leaves us with the job of fixing up where we left off when he's hit by the car. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that down there. And we do need to work on this a little bit more. When he's hit by a car, I'll just leave that there. Let's just clear some space for us underneath. Move this guy over. There we go. Okay. So when he's hit by a car, the behavior that they want us to do in the assignment is to put him back where he started after saying ouch, and then let the program run for a little bit longer. Our time will continue to tick down, but you've got a second chance to get across. But the one thing we do need to do is decrement the lives, and if the lives gets to 0, in that case the game is over and you can't play anymore. So one of the things we're going to need to do is have a kind of game over sprite, a little thing that pops up and says that your game is over. And that's one we can draw, I think. So we'll create a new sprite, and this is our game over costume. And it's going to be on our game over sprite. And this is pretty simple, I think. We'll go ahead and make it a vector. We're going to put a little box in here, which we'll fill with white, just like that. And then we'll pick a color. What's that? Red. Red means something's gone wrong, doesn't it? So let's go ahead and make that red. And I don't know which these are, but let's make it game over. It's very sad. The game is over. And we'll just leave it with just this dialogue for now. It'll pop up and there's nothing you can do about it. Later on we can see about making it so that the game restarts. But for now, your game is just over. Alright. So that obviously shouldn't be showing up at the beginning of our game. So let's go ahead and make sure that that doesn't happen. When the green flag is clicked, let's make sure that this guy is hidden. And we'll go ahead and set his, let's make sure that the position though is right. Set it go to X, Y, 0, and 0. I think that'll center him better. Yep, just like that. And then we'll make sure he's not really there, like that. So he's gone, no problem. Let's get back to our frog. The frog is going to find out that he's hit by a car. And when he's hit by a car, he keeps doing that ouch thing over and over again because we never said he wasn't hit by a car. So let's just go ahead and reset that he's hit by a car to not be the case. That should go back to false after this 1 second has gone by. And then we need to do this bit where we change we need to change the lives by taking 1 life away. So we need to set his lives, change it by -1. And Lives is right there. 5 minus 1. Now, that's all good and well, but we have a condition we need to check at this point. And that is if our lives has become less than 1. Now, really, should be able to just check to see if our lives is equal to 0. But hey, why don't we be safe? And negative 1's bad also. So let's go ahead and say if our lives are less than 1. If that's the case, we shouldn't be running anymore. Set is running to false. And that will stop our game loop. And then we'll go ahead and broadcast a game over message. Okay, and it's this guy over here that needs to keep track of game over, so when he receives game over, he can go ahead and go to the front and show himself. Well, that's not enough yet. We have to also handle the case where the game isn't over. So back to our frog again. If he gets hit by a car and his life, if this isn't true, which means we really should have used if then else. Pop that guy back up there. Well, if it's not the case that our lives is less than 1, then we need to move ourselves back here, which means that we need to set our current row. In fact, why am I even doing this? I need to do exactly what I did up here, so I might as well just take it. All these are getting kind of in the way of each other. Just move them down a little. Like to be able to see the scripts that I'm writing. Let's go ahead and duplicate these and bring them down. See how much of this we need. We certainly need to set the current row, the jump start Y and the jump start X, and the direction, that's fine. We don't need to set the size because that's already done, but we can position the frog on the screen. All those things are good. And this is now kind of taking up a little more space, so we want to make sure it's visible. Let's just scoot her down just a little bit more there so everybody has their space. Okay, so what should happen now is that when he's hit by a car, the lives should go down by 1, so that's the indication is right there, and that guy there. If our lives are less than 1, if they're 0 essentially, then we should stop running and we should make the game over appear. Otherwise, we should move ourselves back to the proper row and X and Y that is associated with that, point in the proper direction, and position ourselves on the screen. Okay, let's see if that happens. Let's go ahead and get big again. We'll run. Our jumping seems to be still working. What happens when I get hit by a car? Ouch. Oh, we're 1 row off. See if that happens again. But our lives are going down, and what happens in our last life? Game over. Okay, so that's good. We just got one little bug. We're off by 1 in our rows. Let's go down here. It's interesting that that would be different. Let's go ahead and hit 3. Let's try that again. So 2 is correct. I think he's in the midst of a jump is the problem. So we still have a little problem because he's actually trying to update himself in the midst of his little jump. So I think what I want to do here when he's hit by a car is to also make sure that his jump direction is equal to none. Okay. There, he's set to the right spot. There we go. All right. I'll make that bigger and I'll let you guys see it as well. When it's smaller, it runs a little smoother. When it's bigger, it has to do a little bit more work. Ouch. Lives went down by 1. Ouch. Lives went down by 1. Last ouch. And the game is over. Alright. Now that is getting us back on track. I felt like at the end of our last episode, I had made things a little bit worse, but it was a little bit worse moved in the right direction so that things could be better in the end. Sometimes you have to take a step backwards to go 2 steps forward. And let's see where we're at now with this competition. If I move back to our rules, which are right here, we've got a few things more that we've done. Certainly the frog does these things. The background appears, the frog appears, time is set properly. The frog moves left and right, the cars move into view. We are missing this one. That's the one we're missing for 5 points right there for when the green flag is clicked. We don't have any logs yet. This guy's done. This guy's actually the same as this guy, only for some reason they put right and left and then they put left and right. He moves forward and backwards. The animation appears when he goes. The frog now returns. We just did this one. Goes back to his starting position if he's hit by a car. We just did this one. Lives decrease by 1 if he's hit by a car. We did this one in our last one where he says ouch. And we haven't done the log stuff yet and the water stuff. So we're missing all of this bit here. And we don't have the win. We also don't have when the timer lives. We have half of this. When lives reaches 0, we get used. Let's do that. Let's do that little last bit really quickly, because that one should be pretty easy. So let's go and we'll finish out this 4-point thing, and then we'll be done with this particular episode. So let me switch back to my program here, and at the inside of our game loop, what happens here when we're doing the tick? When we get to no longer running, basically that means that our time is hit 0, so we can do the exact same event. So we can just go ahead and broadcast game over. I think it should be just as easy as that. Let's make sure that happens. Go ahead and get big. The problem is we do have to wait 30 seconds, so you're gonna have to watch these cars go by. Should get down to the end though after 20, 19. 15. Oops, and I just bumped the microphone there with my hand. So if you heard a big boom, that wasn't because of the frog. We're still counting down from 10. It's like it's a rocket about to go off. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We hit the end. And game over. It did exactly what we did. 4 points to us. We're in a good situation. Thanks for listening. We've got further along in our game, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.